You know that feeling? Sunday night hits, and you just get that little dread about the alarm clock going off Monday morning.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and if you've ever, even just thought about shaking things up, maybe leaving that traditional 9 to 5,
Hmm.
perhaps for another job, or maybe trying out freelancing, starting your own thing, or just something completely different.
Yeah.
Trust me, you're not alone. So many people feel that way.
It's incredibly common, that desire for a change.
Right.
And, making a big move like leaving a steady job.
Yeah.
Well, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Lots to think about.
Absolutely. So, for today's conversation, we've pulled together quite a mix of perspectives to help us unpack it all.
Right.
We've got some solid financial advice, insights from career coaches, personal stories from folks who've actually made the leap.
Real world experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even the mindset side of things, like what makes an entrepreneur tick, we're trying to get a really rounded view.
And the goal here really is to boil it down,
Yeah.
to find those practical, sort of straightforward steps and things you need to consider if you're thinking about job change.
Yeah, we want to give you useful takeaways without making it feel like another overwhelming project.
Precisely. Keep it manageable.
Okay, so let's say you've got that itch. You're thinking maybe it's time for something new. Where on earth do you start?
Well, the sources we looked at really hammered home one crucial first step. Planning.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously. Having a solid plan before you even whisper the word resignation.
Okay, planning first, not just jumping ship.
Exactly. There was a quote from Angela Gabriel at Biospace. She said something like, "Without a comprehensive plan, you might overlook important details and obligations, leading to confusion, misinterpretation, and potential setbacks."
That makes a lot of sense. It's easy to just want out when you're unhappy, but skipping the planning sounds like asking for trouble later.
It really does.
So what goes into this plan? What kind of things are we talking about?
Okay, so based on DiNapoli's points in that same article, there are a few key areas. First, think about your communication. How will you tell your manager, your team?
Right, the actual conversation.
Then, the transition itself. You need a plan for handing off your projects. Who takes what? How do you update clients or partners you work with?
Okay, yeah, can't just leave everyone hanging.
Definitely not. And then there's the legal stuff. You need to look at your employment contract again. Are there any clauses you need to be aware of? Non-competes, things like that.
Ah, good point. The fine print.
And maybe the biggest one for many people, understand how leaving impacts your retirement funds and your health insurance. That's huge.
Oh, absolutely.
Like AP Wealth Management advises, taking time to reflect on how your financial situation could change during this transition is key. It all ties together.
Okay, so planning covers communication, handover, contracts, and the big benefit pieces.
Got it.
Once you have that sort of roadmap, what's next? I'm guessing money comes into play pretty quickly.
You are 100% right. Finance is understandably a top concern. And across everything we reviewed, building a financial safety net was just paramount.
All right, let's dive into the money side then. What does this safety net actually look like?
AP Wealth Management, they really recommend aiming for an emergency fund that covers about 3 to 6 months of your essential living expenses.
3 to 6 months.
Yeah,
Okay.
that gives you that critical breathing room. While you figure out what's next, cover any income gaps.
Mhm.
It reduces the stress immensely.
Okay, 3 to 6 months. That can feel like a really big number for some people. How do you actually build that up? Any tips there?
They offered a couple of practical ideas. One is maybe a bit counterintuitive at first.
Mm-hmm.
They suggest temporarily pausing your regular savings contributions.
Really? Stop saving.
Yeah, like diverting that money directly into building up the emergency fund. They actually said it's one of the few times they'd advise reducing normal savings. The priority becomes that immediate cash buffer.
Okay, that makes sense in this context. Focus fire.
Exactly. And another suggestion, look around your house. Stuff you don't use anymore. Extra furniture, old gadgets, clothes.
Uh-huh.
Sell it. Turn that clutter into cash for your fund.
Yeah.
Every little bit helps.
That's a great actionable tip. Declutter and save. I like it. What about retirement accounts? That's a huge worry, right? Tapping into those?
Oh, absolutely. And the advice here is pretty clear and consistent.
Yeah.
Really try, not to withdraw from your retirement accounts early. So before age 59 and a half.
Eyes that. The penalties.
Exactly.
Right.
You usually get hit with a 10% federal penalty, plus you have to pay regular income tax on the withdrawal. It can be a really significant chunk gone, a major setback for your long-term goals.
Oof. Yeah, okay. Avoid if at all possible. Are there any other options if you're really in a tight spot for cash?
Yes, thankfully. AP Wealth Management suggests looking first at any non-retirement investments you might have.
Like Stocks or mutual funds outside of a 401k or IRA.
Precisely. Selling those typically doesn't trigger those hefty early withdrawal penalties. And, sort of as a last resort, they mention potentially setting up a personal line of credit with your bank.
Okay, like a loan you can draw on if needed.
Yeah. It gives you access to funds without raiding your retirement nest egg. But it's still debt, so you need to be careful.
Right. So build the cash buffer, hands off the retirement funds ideally, maybe sell some stuff. Got it. What else helps get the financial house in order before you actually quit?
Okay, another really smart tactic is to max out your current employee benefits before you leave.
Use them or lose them.
Exactly. AP Wealth Management had some great examples like schedule those dentist appointments or eye exams you've been putting off. Use up any money left in your flexible spending account. That FSA money is pre-tax, so definitely don't leave it on the table if you have it.
Right. That often has a deadline anyway.
It does.
Yeah.
Also, think about things like gym memberships paid by the company, wellness programs, or even if they offer tuition or course reimbursement, get that in before you go.
Makes total sense. Squeeze every last drop of value. What about costs that pop up after you leave? The unexpected stuff.
Yeah, that's another really key part of the financial planning. AP Wealth Management stresses budgeting for those transition costs.
Like what?
Well, it could be moving expenses if your next step is in a different city. It could be healthcare costs, especially if you have a gap before new insurance kicks in, maybe through Cobra or the marketplace.
Right. Cobra can be expensive.
It really can. Also, think about professional development. Maybe you need a certification for a new field, or just the costs of job hunting. Maybe new interview clothes, travel, setting up a better home office if you're going remote.
Yeah, those little things add up fast.
They really do. So it's not just about having living expenses covered, but also having a buffer for these transition-specific things.
Okay, good point. Now, sometimes leaving the 9 to 5 isn't about finding another 9 to 5, right? People look at totally different paths.
Absolutely. And that's something our sources really encouraged exploring, ideally before you quit your current job.
How?
AP Wealth Management mentioned things like starting a side hustle or doing some freelance work on the side. It's a fantastic way to, test the waters.
Dip your toe in before diving.
Exactly.
Huh?
See if you enjoy it, see if it's viable, maybe build up some clients or a portfolio without the pressure of it being your sole income right away.
That sounds way less risky. There was an article by Boy and Haddon about alternative careers, wasn't there? What kind of options did they cover?
Oh yeah, Haddon laid out a really wide range of possibilities. It went way beyond just another office job.
Like, give us some examples.
Sure. They mentioned, obviously, freelancing and gig work, which we just talked about,
Mm-hmm.
but also things like starting your own business entrepreneurship, exploring fully remote jobs, becoming a consultant in your field, pursuing something in the creative arts, writing, design, music.
Okay.
Also, e-commerce or drop shipping, event planning, photography or videography, fitness or wellness coaching.
Wow, quite the list.
It keeps going. Working for a nonprofit, careers in travel or adventure, getting into real estate, or focusing on the green economy, sustainable careers. It really opens your eyes to how many different ways there are to make a living.
That's actually really inspiring. It shows there isn't just one path after the 9 to 5. Now, that entrepreneurship piece, starting your own thing. Albert Opoku's book mentioned having entrepreneurship in your veins. What's that really about? Is it something you're born with?
Opoku clarifies it's not necessarily about being born an entrepreneur. It's more about having that deep internal drive,
Yeah.
the desire to build something yourself.
Okay, so more of a mindset.
Yeah, and it involves a few key traits, like being okay with taking risks, calculated risks, hopefully, having the discipline to save money and reinvest, and crucially, having the resilience to bounce back from failures or setbacks, because let's be honest, they will happen in business.
Right. It's not always smooth sailing.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And he actually offers a tool on his website, an entrepreneur's self-assessment, to help people think about whether that path aligns with their personality and risk tolerance.
Oh, that's useful.
And one piece of advice from him I thought was really clever was to use your current job as your business school.
Huh. How does that work? Learn on their dime.
Sort of. He suggests really paying attention to how the business you work for operates. How do they handle customer service, product development, sales, marketing, finances, team management?
Observe everything.
Exactly. Even if it's not your direct responsibility, you can learn so much just by watching, listening, asking questions. It's like getting a free masterclass in running a business.
That's brilliant, actually. Very practical. Now, Opoku also talked about a gradual transition into starting a business. Why go slow?
He really advocates for easing into it rather than just quitting your job cold turkey and launching.
Yeah.
This could mean, say, reducing your hours at your main job while you build the business part-time, or maybe even hiring someone early on to manage parts of the new business while you still have your other income.
What's the main advantage of that? Less pressure.
Exactly. It lets the business grow its own capital, reinvest profits, and build a foundation without you needing to draw a full salary from it immediately. It takes the financial pressure off you personally.
I see. Gives the business breathing room, too.
Precisely. And Boku shared his own story. He had saved 2 years' worth of living expenses, but still faced big financial hurdles starting out.
Wow, even with 2 years saved.
Yeah. Looking back, he felt that maybe an even longer part-time transition, perhaps more than a year, might have been even better.
That's a really sobering but valuable reality check. Even with good planning, it can be tough. Now, we've talked a lot about plans and money, but leaving a job is emotional too, right?
Oh, hugely emotional. All our sources, AP Wealth Management, Lori Wang, Apoku, they all touched on this. It's usually a real mix.
Like what kind of feelings?
Excitement for sure, hope for the future, but also anxiety about the uncertainty, maybe even a sense of loss, leaving colleagues,
Yeah.
routines.
Yeah, even if you didn't love the job, it's familiar. Leaving the known for the unknown is scary.
It absolutely is. And the key is recognizing that those feelings are totally normal. You need to be patient with yourself during that adjustment.
So don't beat yourself up for feeling worried or sad.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
AP Wealth Management even advises preparing for potential feelings of guilt, especially if you feel like you're leaving your team in a lurch or something.
Ah, okay. So just as you need a financial safety net, maybe you need an emotional support system too.
That's a great way to put it, yes. Having support is critical.
Yeah.
This could be a career coach, a mentor who's been through it, or finding a community of other freelancers or entrepreneurs.
People who get it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Opoku mentioned the Ghana Think Foundation as a community that helped him, and Lori Wang made a really interesting point about job security.
What?
She realized, based on her experiences, that a traditional job isn't always the secure option people think it is. Company loyalty isn't what it used to be. Security might actually come from having your own skills and diverse income streams.
That's a powerful reframe. Job security versus career security, maybe?
Something like that. And tying into the emotional side, Dr. Ken Achety had a strong take on fear.
What did he say?
He basically argued that fear is the main thing holding people back from pursuing their dreams. His advice was pretty blunt. If you have a dream, just do it.
Easier said than done sometimes, but I get the sentiment. Don't let fear paralyze you.
Right. Don't let the what-ifs stop you from even exploring possibilities.
Okay, so plan, save, explore, get support, manage the emotions. What are the big mistakes people make when they actually quit? The pitfalls to avoid?
Well, we keep coming back to it, but not having that plan we discussed up front is mistake number one, according to Biospace.
The plan is key.
Got it. Another huge one DiNapoli mentioned is burning bridges.
Leaving on bad terms.
It's exactly. Acting unprofessionally on your way out, bad-mouthing the company or your boss, maybe sharing confidential info.
Yeah.
It's just a bad idea. Your professional world can be smaller than you think.
So true. You never know who you'll run into again or need a reference from down the line. Maintain professionalism.
Absolutely. And related to that, DiNapoli also stressed making sure you fully understand all the implications of leaving, like those contractual obligations we talked about, non-competes, returning company property, all that stuff. Know what you're agreeing to by leaving.
Right. No surprises later. Okay, so let's fast forward. You've navigated the planning, the finances, the emotions. You left professionally. What's life actually like on the other side after the 9 to 5?
We got a few different flavors of that. Andrew Tate, for example, talks about some people just having this unextinguishable fire, he calls it, a need for something more eventful than a standard, predictable life.
Okay.
For him, it seems less about chasing happiness and more about achievement, competence, building something significant. It's a very driven perspective.
Intense. What about more practical advice for building something new once you're out?
Charlie Chang offered some really concrete steps, specifically for starting a service-based business, maybe even while you're still employed initially.
Okay, what did he suggest?
First, know your numbers, calculate your living expenses precisely, then choose a business type he leans towards services. Less risky than, say, inventing a product from scratch.
Makes sense. Lower startup costs usually.
Right. Then, learn a high-value, in-demand skill. Next, offer your services for free just initially.
For free? Why?
To build a portfolio and get testimonials, social proof. Then build a simple website, start advertising, and then this is key. Gradually increase your prices as you get results and build your reputation.
That sounds like a really smart step-by-step way to build momentum. Very practical.
It is. Then there was the Reddit thread about being your own boss that offered some real talk.
Oh, yeah. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The pros were what you'd expect. Flexible hours, being your own boss, setting your own goals,
Yeah.
freedom.
The dream, right?
But the cons were just as real, like never really clocking out. Feeling guilty when you take time off because you could be working. The constant need to motivate yourself.
Yeah, the discipline factor.
Totally. Someone mentioned trading a laid-back, carefree life for financial freedom. It's a trade-off.
That really hits home. It's not all lounging on a beach with a laptop.
Not usually, no. And another comment talked about the initial death march, working insane hours for the first few years to get the business off the ground. It often takes immense effort up front.
Right. So it's freedom, but it comes at a price, especially early on.
It seems that way for many. But then Lori Wang brings it back to that quote from The Psychology of Money.
Which one was that?
The most valuable thing in your life is freedom. The freedom to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, as long as you want, is priceless.
Wow. That's powerful.
It really puts it in perspective. She contrasts that perceived security of a job, which might not be as secure as we think, with the potential for real control and fulfillment that comes from building your own path, despite the challenges.
So it boils down to what you value most, maybe. Predictability versus autonomy.
That seems to be a core theme. Leaving that 9 to 5 is obviously a huge decision. It takes serious planning, financially, logistically, emotionally.
Definitely not something to do on a whim after a bad Monday.
Not ideally, no. And there's so many different routes you can take afterwards. It's not one size fits all. Finding the right path is deeply personal.
And it sounds like really knowing why you want to leave, understanding your tolerance for risk, and having people in your corner, that support system, are all just essential.
Absolutely critical, whatever path you end up choosing.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening, something to chew on, inspired by Dr. Atiti.
Yeah.
What's one small thing you could do, like today, to just explore something that feels more aligned with what you really want?
Good question.
Could be researching a field that interests you, setting up a tiny automatic transfer to savings, reaching out to someone on LinkedIn whose career looks interesting. Just one tiny step.
Yeah, don't let the fear of the big leap stop you from taking a small step. That's great advice.
Some really valuable stuff there. Thanks for breaking it all down.
My pleasure. It's a big topic.
It really is. And to everyone listening, we genuinely hope this conversation gave you some helpful things to consider if you're thinking about making a change in your own work life. Thanks for tuning in.